Hi and welcome to today's video. My name is Rita. This is my channel 10 Red Lipsticks and this is my update for my No Pan Left Behind, where I am trying to use all of my eyeshadow shades this year, and this is my update for all of the palettes that I used and some singles in January and February. I've been very behind on my updates for this project, but I have been ploughing away using palettes, so I'm going to update for January and February in this video, and then I'll do another update for the last few months, and then I'm going to intro new palettes that I'll be working on now. So this video and the next one are just going to be pure updates going through the palettes that I've used, and we're going to do them ranking style. This is very much inspired by It's Just Steph. I love her ranking No Pan Left Behind videos. So let's get into it. So these rankings are purely based on my enjoyment using the palettes this time around. So this isn't necessarily a ranking of which of these palettes is my favourite. It's much more so about how I enjoyed using them in this project specifically. So there are some palettes that I really love that didn't rank that highly. Maybe I was in a rush when I used them, or I kind of didn't really think of them as a complete palette because I wound up using shades in them to supplement other looks, and I never really did one full look with that palette. It depends, and some of them, because of specific circumstances, I didn't enjoy them this time as much as I would other times, and others maybe jumped up a bit in comparison to how I would have felt about the palette previously. Do I have any lipstick on at all? Barely. This is Cheeky from, what's it called? Oh yeah, it's the Maybelline Superstay Vinyl Ink in 35 Cheeky. Not necessarily a perfect application. Anywho, we've got 18 palettes to talk about, so let's get straight into it. I will show you looks as we go along. Ranking at the bottom is Colourpop Sorbet. Oh god, the packaging literally just broke. It's coming apart here. Anywho, I really didn't enjoy this at all. It wore away so quickly in my crease. The fallout from the glittery shades, they are beautiful, like they're much more sparkly than some other Colourpop shades. Like maybe with a glitter glue I'd like these more, and I love the colour story, but I really did not enjoy using this at all. So yeah, it is at the bottom. Next up is the Colourpop Going Coconuts. I actually decluttered this palette. I gave it to a friend. I just did like a quick pass through my eyeshadow palette drawers. I've one of these shallow drawers and one of the lower thicker drawers on my deeper drawers on my IKEA 9 drawer unit have eyeshadow palettes in them, and I just did a quick pass through and I got rid of, I don't know, 15 eyeshadow palettes, something like that, and gave them away to friends, and that was one of them. I was just like, this is beautiful, but I really don't need it. And like is it Cocoa Crush, the center shade, that's really sparkly and beautiful and very shiny and a lovely kind of rose goldy colour. I was just like, it's a bit older now, and the fallout that it always had as an issue has gotten even worse. So I was like, I don't need that anymore. And my friends who have much less makeup, that's the kind of colour story that they would love. So I was like, it's a no-brainer to give it away. So anyway, next up is the Catrice 5 in a Box 020 Soft Rose Look. This palette is actually now in my Project Level Up, and actually I'll use one of the shades, and I'm enjoying it much more now that it's in my Project Level Up, where I'm being encouraged to use it more than I enjoyed it in No Pan Left Behind. It just was a simple, I wasn't thinking about it that much, you know, so I didn't dislike it at all, but it didn't really make its mark on me this time around. Similarly, and in fact I adore this palette, the next one is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro. It's crazy. So it is ranking 15. Sorry, my computer is over there and my eyesight is not good enough to read those numbers. I adore this palette. It is absolutely amazing. It's perfection, actually. I think this palette is so good and absolutely worth the money. But I just didn't enjoy it that much this time around. I think I did like 2 different looks that involved these shades. I I just wasn't that focused on it, and it just wasn't that fun to me this time around. In general, I love it, and to be honest, if I could only keep 10 or 15 palettes, like, that would be in high contention to get a spot. So it's unusual that it's ranking this far down, but it's just, I didn't get as much joy out of it this time around as I have on previous occasions. Next up, very odd that this is the order for these, but is the Natasha Denona Mini Love. So this palette, you've got some purples, you've got this beautiful pink, like, shimmer that is just such a good inner corner highlight. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun with this palette this time around. And I think I went into that inner corner shade a couple of times. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And previously, if you'd told me I had to declutter a Natasha Denona palette, it would have been between the Mini Love and the Mini Nude. And now I'm like, oh, I definitely don't want to lose the Mini Love. I love that inner corner highlight shade in particular, and I quite like the rest of the shades. So yeah, it's moved up in my estimation through this project. Sorry, just keeping my computer alive. Next up, I generally love this palette, but again, it suffered the fate of the Mini Retro. So this is the Beauty Bakerie Breakfast in Bed. I'm so sad that Beauty Bakerie have closed. But yeah, as you can see, I have 2 pans in this palette. This was my pan that palette last year, and I have some other good dips going. I adore this colour story. These eyeshadows are always flattering. I love this palette so much. I just kind of use these shades to supplement other looks generally, and I didn't, you know, sink my teeth into this palette as a palette, so it just didn't make its mark this time around. But generally it's a stunning palette and I absolutely love it. We are now on to number 12, and this is a new to me palette. I should have put these palettes in order. They're just like in a messy pile in front of me. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury quad in the Uptown Girl, and my mother-in-law gave me this, and this sparkly topper shade is where this palette really shines. You can even barely see it there because it's such a translucent base. And the rest of the shades, now I could take or leave this deepest shade just because of my skin tone really, and it's kind of like a satiny meh, but like this taupey satin and this shade I really like. So yeah, I hugely enjoyed this. It was a gift from my mother-in-law. She decluttered it to me, and yeah, really enjoyed it, more than I would have expected to enjoy a quad with that colour story, because I love cool tones but not necessarily greys. I'm more like cool browns, taupes, cool pinks, cool purples, but yeah, cool greys this time. Really liked it. Next up, number 11, we have the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural. Oh, this palette is in the wrong pile. It's actually... So yeah, I used this palette in February. We went on a trip to Prague and I brought this with me. Look at those sparkles, so special, so beautiful. The colour story is just stunning. It's such a great palette. The only reason that this is in 10th place and not higher, or 11th place and not higher up, is because of bringing it on a trip. I just didn't really have the patience to use it every day in a row for several days, and I had to do that because I wasn't home with all the rest of my makeup. So these beautiful sparkly shades have a decent amount of fallout, and I just found that really frustrating when I was in a bit of a rush to get ready to go out and start sightseeing for the day, and then I'd have to like do my eyes first and then wipe my face clean very thoroughly and then do my base makeup, which isn't the natural way that I would always prefer to do my makeup. So yeah, I just found that a bit frustrating this time around, but I still love the colour story and I still do love the formula. Like, I think they're worth it, those shimmery shades. it was a test of my patience to be forced to use them several days in a row when I was busy and I wanted to be kind of getting out the door a bit quicker in the morning. So yeah, I will tell you about how the rest of my makeup went on that trip shortly when we get a bit further up the ranking. So next is the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette. For a minute I was like totally forgetting what the story was with this, and now I remember. So this is the palette that I wore on our wedding day, and like I had my makeup done professionally, but I got her to use these shades because I just think they're stunningly beautiful. And like this shimmer formula is above and beyond anything else Natasha Denona has, I would say, other than Galaxia, which is in the mini retro, the mini Starlette, and the Star palette. I think it's a 3 times repeated shade. I wish it was in the big retro palette, but anyway, or the I Need a Nude, which I don't have, but like I want that shade in a midi Natasha Denona size pan. Anyway, oh, also, that's the only thing about this palette that sucks, is you can't remove the pans. If you could remove these pans and I could put them into a midi palette, that would be amazing. I also use the highlighter and the blush in here. But anyway, so it was our makeup, my wedding makeup palette, and then at the end of February we were away for my friend's wedding, and then it was our anniversary the day after her wedding, so that was lovely. We were kind of on a little holiday in Meath, and I wore the same palette that I wore on my wedding day. We went to a whiskey distillery and then we went out for dinner, and it was just really nice. And yeah, I love that palette. I think it's great. The colour story is amazing, and the formula of those shimmers is just so good. It's hard for it to rank higher because we've got some really special things coming, and just also bigger palettes, but yeah, it is a special one. Next up we have the Viseart Viseart Paris edit. So this, mine is a 9 pan, but it would have originally been a 12 pan. 3 shades arrived broken, so I actually got this palette for free. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this. I love the Viseart formula. I think it's phenomenal. And I did a bit more than I would have previously probably used this palette, use it as a more cohesive palette, as well as it did complement other palettes I was using very well. So yeah, really enjoyed that one. And just, you can always rely on Viseart's formula. The shimmers are great, very smooth, not all the most high shine, but they do have high shine shimmers as well. But the mattes are just phenomenal, like so soft, so smooth, that like so easy to blend. You nearly don't really have to blend, which is just such a joy to use. So yeah, really loved that one. Next up, complete opposite, the Roen 1111 quad. These are like extremely flaky cream shadows that are just very textured and interesting. So yeah, I've just swatched it like over something there, but really beautiful, really interesting. Do take a bit more work, but I really enjoyed them, and they again complemented other shades I was working on really well. So it was so nice to have those cool tones to play with, because I just am such a cool tone lover. Next up is the Charlotte Tilbury Stoned Rose Beauty palette. So I brought this with me. I had to travel to a conference and didn't have any checked luggage or even like a proper 10k carry-on. I just had like a school bag. So this, having it all in one, was perfect. And like these rosy warm browns are just so beautiful, and I think work quite well for me because they do have that rosiness to them. They're not just straight kind of more orangey browns. So yeah, I love this palette in particular. I love this format of palettes, and I really wish Charlotte Tilbury would bring them back again. In particular, she did a version where there was a face powder here and then a highlight here and only one blush instead of 2 shades of blush, and I would love her to do more versions like that, and obviously in a more diverse colour range than she did previously, because this format is just unbeaten in terms of having it all and bringing it with you when you're travelling. So yeah, phenomenal palette. Really, really deserves to be more widely available to more people. Ooh. And unfortunately it's not available to anyone anymore because she seems to have abandoned that format altogether. Sorry, my voice is not with it today. Next up, and it's surprising that it is ranking so high, is this palette from Catrice. This is their mineral eyeshadow palette in 010 Light. We're missing a shade. It fell when I first got it. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this, and in particular these two mattes that are just like perfect transition shades for me. Like a cool tone and a warm tone, obviously very light, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed this palette, and I'm so glad that I didn't declutter it because it was one that I kind of don't always use that often, so it's great to be encouraged to use it in this project, and to realise like I have these beautiful mattes that are available to me whenever I need them. So yeah, very grateful to this project for making me use every shade in that palette. Next up we have the Viseart Petit Four in Lila. Just stunning. So actually, let me compare this and the Charlotte Tilbury, which I've just dropped on the ground. So I hope you can see here, okay, the difference between the Charlotte Tilbury and the Viseart, that there's just a bit more brown and a bit more pink in the Viseart, whereas the Charlotte Tilbury is very grey. But other than that, generally similar concept, cool toned, neutral cool toned quad with 2 shimmers and 2 mattes. The Charlotte Tilbury is kind of like 2 satins and 2 shimmers, or maybe 3 shimmer satins and 1 sparkly topper. Anyway, this is phenomenal. These 2 mattes are stunning, and I have reached into them again to use with singles and to use with other things because they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect for me. This is what I want. I want nude pinks that aren't too pink and aren't too brown, aren't too taupe. Like, this shade is perfection. The only thing I would change about this palette if I were designing it myself is this deeper shimmer. I would have it be a bit pinky, so that you could kind of do an all pink look or an all taupe look, or you could mix them all together, which I generally do mix them all together. Either way, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous as it is. But yeah, just if I were personally designing it for me personally, that's the only change I would make. But I love the packaging. I love the little removable pans that I can swap these out with my Eton Do palettes. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I adore it. So yeah, it gets spot number 5. Next up is, and this is a new palette to me. This was the first time I used it. Kaleidos Futurism 7 Sashimi City. They are discontinuing it. If it is still available, it is probably still on sale, which is how I bought it as well. So it's these 6 shades, and this pink ginger is just phenomenal. Like, you can see a pink there, and I can mostly see a gold. It's this stunning duochrome, which, let's see, out there, pink, and can't really get the gold to show up. The shade Pink Ginger is so beautiful and really special. It's definitely easier to see in person how special it is than on camera. I think you can see the flip there though. But all the rest of the shades are great as well, and these pans are magnetic. I was very hopeful that that was still the case when I bought it. I was afraid because often, you know, palettes will be magnetic at one stage of their lives and then not magnetic. So I was so pleased when I found out that they are still magnetic. So yeah, beautiful packaging and really feels weighty and lovely. But yeah, this is just perfect for me. You know, a neutral palette with a little bit of pink is all I want. So yeah, love this one. It's amazing, and I'm so glad that I bought it. If it is still available and you want it, just do know that it is being discontinued. So and then finally, so when I was in Prague and I was getting a bit frustrated that my glittery, sparkly, beautiful eyeshadows were falling all over my face as I was getting ready and delaying me getting ready, I was also very excited because they have Sephora in the Czech Republic. They also have Notino, and a few other shops. I'm like, which shops did I go to? I went to a bunch of different shops that they had, which we don't have here. And I bought several things, including 2 eyeshadow palettes. So first up, the mini Starlette in 3rd place. So this is just such a beautiful palette, and I actually just used it again recently and I love it. So I actually already have this shade, which is Galaxia, because it's in the mini retro, which was earlier in this video. And I also already have this shade, which is Nude Mauve. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting confused about which way around the sticker is and which way around the shades are. Nude Mauve, which is in the Midi Retro palette. So that's silly that I bought a palette that I already owned 40% of, but this is such a perfect combination. You can do an all cool tone look, you can do an all warm toned look, very simple. You can do mixes of all of them, and it's just all very neutral, very beautiful, very flattering, very easy to wear. It doesn't go too deep, which now Natasha Denona shadows build very intensely on top of themselves, so you can absolutely build this up to be very intense. But for me, who doesn't like that, that, you know, all the shades are still usable for me is a huge plus. And then in 2nd place, the mini Biba. So I bought both of these in Sephora on my birthday, or like one on my birthday and one the day after my birthday. So it's definitely a bit of a treat me mentality. And I think the mini Biba was reduced is why I bought it. And since this was released, I've always thought, gosh, goodness, that's a beautiful color story. But I thought maybe it was a bit too warm toned for me. But no, these are kind of pinky peaches. It's not too warm, too in your face. And this shimmer is just perfection. Like, this rosy champagne, like, absolutely stunning. Just gorgeous. I love the packaging, the like soft touch, and it's not white. It's like this off-whitey colour. I love it so much. It is different to the white of the nude palette, which... do I know where that is? No. But yeah, absolutely loved this and used it way more than using every shade once. Really, really enjoy it. And we've got a cream to powder matte up here, which, as in not a shimmer, which is just my favourite formula. Like, really, really easy to use. Really, really nice. So many shades all over myself. In top place, this is kind of cheating, but my Beauty Bay Neutral 42 palette, which was my Project Level Up Level 1 palette. So for that project and for this one, I had to use every shade once, which was totally fine, other than, you know, a few deeper shades. It was easy and very enjoyable, and with the deeper shades it was very manageable. Just, you know, they're not really for me. For me, I'm not going to use this black. You know, leather maybe is as deep as I'll go. So cowboy, jet, even decadence, even though I think it's a gorgeous shimmer, is just not really my vibe. And bean, they're not my vibe. But other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed, and you would think this palette would be very repetitive because it's so big, you know, there's such subtle difference between some of these browns, but I really, really enjoyed it. So I am going to put up on the screen images where I show you, because this palette is available as a 16 pan and as a 9 pan. The 9 pan was never a possibility for me because it is all matte and I'm a shimmer girl, but the 16 pan I was really humming and hawing between buying the 16 pan and buying the 42 pan. So I, in retrospect, am glad that I bought the 42 pan, because some of my favorite shades are not in the 16 pan. Now I can't remember exactly which shades those are right now, but I'm going to swatch some of my favorites for you. I've run out of fingers. So these are my favourite shimmers from the palette. I'd say my top favourites are Doll, which is the shade that I panned in level 1 of Project Level Up. I'll link that video. And Sparrow. And Sparrow, this like taupe here, I really struggled to not just keep using Sparrow, and I had to be like, no, you have to use every shade. Cocktail, this pinky purple, really all of them. They're just so gorgeous. There is a variety of formulae in here, so they have like creamy shades that are kind of like Colourpop Super Shocks. That's Locket is one of them. They've more traditional shimmers. They've kind of more thin shimmers. So like Ice, this wouldn't be my favorite Ice. It's a much thinner shimmer formula. And then you have these kind of really thick, rich, so like Fizz there. Still really smooth, but thicker and richer. And then Sparrow, which was my top favorite. Just that you needed 2 swatches of Sparrow and Fizz, so I did. But yeah, really enjoyed it. So I don't regret getting this huge palette, even though there are definitely shades that I could do without. I would happily make my own 16 pan of this. Maybe I'll put up what that would be. But I am glad I got this to have all of these shades that I love and didn't just stick with the 16 pan version that they make. But yeah, if this is too much for you, there are smaller options, but I'm thrilled, and it was my top favourite palette of January and February. So yeah. I also used some shimmers because, some singles, because obviously that wasn't enough. I'm just going to plow ahead with this mess all over my hands. So first off, and most importantly, I had created a BYOP of singles. So here it is. We've got shades from Glaminatrix, Glam Shop Poland, and Sydney Grace in here. And I really enjoyed this. I very deliberately picked these colours with kind of spring in mind, and I think it worked out really well. Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back and use some of them a second time, but I had to get through that Beauty Bay palette. I had to plough through. So I didn't really have the opportunity to do that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and definitely loved kind of making a colour story out of my singles that worked together. So obviously I did a couple of cohesive looks just from there, and then I also used some of them in conjunction, for example, with the Beauty Bay palette. Speaking of using things in conjunction, when I went on the trip where I brought the Charlotte Tilbury palette with the rosy browns that I love, I was going for a couple of days, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity to use a few more shades of eyeshadow, but I didn't have space to bring more than one eyeshadow palette, so I brought some individual singles. So this is Warm Bronze from Essence, and this is Venus. So I'll swatch both of these. So Venus is, I believe, still available. It is from the Sprinkled Chrome line. And then Warm Bronze is no longer available. It is from the Melted Chrome line, which are these kind of bouncy, creamy shadows. So the top swatch there is Venus Sprinkled Chrome, and the bottom swatch is Warm Bronze. It's not that warm though. It's kind of a taupey bronze from the Melted Chrome line. Sorry. So there's what the packaging looks like. It's like the same packaging. Obviously, the Sprinkled Chrome is just an updated, though they should bring back the Melted Chrome. They're amazing. I would say the Sprinkled Chrome is not quite as good, but it is really sparkly and beautiful. Like I swatched, I think this shade Venus next to, or maybe it was Mars, a Colourpop Super Shock in the past, and I thought they were very comparable. So yeah, really nice. I also use Glaminatrix Mink, but I will talk about that in my next update, because I use most of the rest of the palette that the Black Glaminatrix single is in a later month. So yeah, that is my update. Thank you so much for watching. I will have another video coming out in a couple of days with an update of all of the palettes that I used the next couple of months. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned, because after this update and the next one to come, there'll be a proper update in terms of rolling in new palettes, which I am randomizing some and choosing some. So yeah, I would love to see you back for that video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video when I have cleaner hands with fewer swatches on them. Bye!